What's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. We are back with a return guest, Josh, the creator of the Broly Dragon Ball Super card game group on Facebook. How you doing tonight, Josh?
It's a good day. I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
It's a good day. I'm good. I'm good. Did you smash some face in with Broly today?
No, not today, but it's been a good couple weeks for Broly. Some good matches against Storm online, doing some XOs with some friends at locals. It's been a wild ride for Broly. I'm actually kind of impressed with myself. Awesome.
Yeah, guys, definitely check out the Broly page on Facebook if you haven't yet. I've actually seen a lot of posts from Josh lately saying how he's been like wrecking Storm and just went like 5-0 at a locals. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, it's definitely a strong deck, especially in the hands of like a good pilot. We kind of talked about this in the last interview. This is an updated Broly interview. We did this back, what, like two-ish months ago, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely before Series 5.
Yeah, so updated list. I know you guys want to see it, so here we go. So we have the Broly leader. A lot of you guys know what he does. He's an older leader. So we'll get started into the main deck. We have the Dimensional Banisher Fu. So this deck, you know, I wouldn't really say this deck lacks in any type of spot removal. So why do you pick Dimensional Banisher as your overall kind of like utility slot?
Great question. Like I said in the previous video interview, Dimensional Banisher Fu has no combo cost. So it keeps hand economy if I need to throw it down as a combo piece. And there is a lot of removal in this deck, but a lot of it is up to the opponent to choose. Like with Endless and Deathless Broly, it's not up to me. Shocking Death Ball is and Kale is, but those are both like conditional cost related.
Right.
Fu is not. He's just a whatever I want to warp, they're gone.
Fair enough. I like it. Then we have 4 Broly's rings. So in the last profile, you were playing 2 Paragus to complement the Broly's rings. So why did the Paragus get cut?
Well, just play testing without it. You know, the Broly engine and like Shocking Death Ball and just some of the tweaks that I've made. The deck is strong enough now that if I don't get ring right away, it's really not that bad anymore.
Okay, fair enough. And then that also like kind of, yeah, it lets you fit in more like, I would say, like better plays into the deck for sure. So now we have the new free green negate Shocking Death Ball, and I've actually been playing green Pilaf, which I'll have a profile up for that soon if anyone's interested. But this, like, basically my point is this card has been nuts. So how much better does this card just feel than Full Power Energy?
Oh, I mean, you read it and it's obviously like a power creeped Full Power Energy.
Yep.
That 2 cost over 1 cost makes a gigantic difference, especially handling Storm. Now both the Goten and the Bardock have to fear the negate.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the things I've noticed against Storm is that like, you know, you can, as Storm has been around longer, people can learn how to somewhat play against it, but if you let those Gotens just linger on the board for multiple turns, it just generates way too many pluses. But Shocking Death Ball, the fact that it can remove Gotens and Bardocks is so good. So then we have the new 5 Power Son Gohan, one of our ways to awaken on turn 1. I don't think this deck necessarily needs it at all because you have like the Cleeflas to also help awaken, but did you ever look at that new 1-drop green Frieza card to help awaken?
Yeah, I've definitely considered it. I'm one of those people that I like having self-awakening if it's optional, like as long as the card does something else. If it has an awakening effect, I'll consider it. So Caulifla's awakening is obviously mandatory, but Gohan is just a nice 1-drop that I can swing with critical early game, awaken if I have the free energy, combo with the East Supreme Kai for a nice double crit. It just gives the deck more options, more offensive pressure.
Fair enough. Then we have the 4 Broly to search out your rest of your Broly package. And then we still have the veggie package in here, the 4 Kaba, the 4 Cleefla, and the 4 Kale. So I think it's still an incredibly strong engine, and obviously we saw that with like things like Shenron veggies being very good this format, things like that. But with set 5 and all the new stuff we've gotten since, like, I actually think our old video was before World Tournament. So even after World Tournament, did you think that this is still the best green engine to play in this deck? I know Cleefla has great synergy as a leader, but did you ever look at maybe other engines to supplement this?
I did, and you know, the most consistent, most effective engine with this leader is the veggies. The veggies were basically designed to buff Broly. It's just unfortunate that the meta was tainted by them in every other deck for so long. But Kale does exactly what Broly wants to do. Caulifla is basically another form of ring, and Kaba tutors the two, so why not run them?
Absolutely. No, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I was just curious, like, maybe what else you've looked into. But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, we talked about this in the last video that, you know, we thought about, you know, the veggies being made to purposely buff Broly, but then, like, because they don't put, you know, strict enough restrictions on these cards, that they just get kind of abused and everything else. So definitely a point to consider. And then the new base 10k power super combo, defensive stance Piccolo. So when I was looking at this list, normally I just like breeze over super combos because they're pretty standard, but I was actually wondering, did you ever consider a sparking Broly build? You know, playing like the sparking negate, maybe playing like the 4-drop Shenron to get some, like, you added untapping and value. Did you ever like craft up a build like that?
Oh, I did, definitely. My initial prototype going into Miraculous Revival was take out the 2 Foos for the 2 Shenron Figure of Majesty,
right,
run the Spark, and run the Sparking Super Combo, the Vegeta over the Piccolo. And I really missed Fu, man. I'm not going to lie. One of my favorite things about this deck is that virtually all my plays are negatively affecting my opponent in some way.
Right.
And I don't really want to have Shenron sit on the field when I'm playing a leader that could potentially kill him myself.
Right, that's fair. That's a good point.
With Kale and Awakened Broly. So I was like, I don't really want to risk putting myself in that situation. So I stuck with the Overrealm.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And I've tried the 4-drop Shenron. The 4-drop Shenron, if you ever played Magic, it just basically feels like a Planeswalker. You know, it just sits there, passively does effects, and it's really good. But I find it only really over the top in like Wish decks, because certain decks you want to just hard cast it. It kind of wastes an entire turn, you know, and then every turn after that, if the Shenron lives, it generates a lot more value. So I totally see what you're saying. Like in non-Wish decks, it's definitely not the craziest thing. So totally. Then we have the Endless Evolution Broly with the, we'll skip over the middle card for a second. Deathless Warrior, just absolutely insane. You know, Endless just makes all your stuff cheaper. Deathless is probably the main reason to play the Broly leader itself, because Deathless is just an insane card. And then this is a new addition to the deck, the Combo Killer Annihilaza. So talk about how you came to this addition of the deck.
So I was messing around after I cut the 2 Paragus. I was trying to think of myself of what kind of like really annoying card I could have in play if I wasn't gonna run Shenron, and I went with Annihilaza because this deck actually doesn't have any other double strike other than the 6-drop Broly and the Fu. So it's a nice little double striker, and it's barrier, and the hand disruption plays into the Broly theme. And it's only 2 because it's not really a necessary part of the deck, but when I can play it, it's very useful.
For sure, yeah. There's a lot of mid-range matchups where like there's kind of just some intermediate turns where you just have to, you know, fill turns up, and Combo Killer can really make a big difference for sure. Then we have the 4 Rampaging Horror. So we've cut Bio Broly from this list, I noticed, and we talked about it a little bit in the last video, how like it was, you know, not maybe a little bit underwhelming, and especially compared to the Broly Rampaging Horror, because all Rampaging Horror costs is 3 instead of 2 for Bio Broly. So how did you come to the decision to cut Bio Broly altogether?
Well, the format is slowing down a bit now, so you know, most of the time games in like the previous deck profile, it would go to like turn 4, but now, because the meta's slower and Broly's like a leader that slows down the pace of the game, I've been getting to turn 5 and even turn 6 pretty frequently. So then that 1 extra mana that you would need for Rampaging over Bio is easier to come by, and then you get a bigger body and a more destructive effect.
For sure.
Bio Broly just kind of felt redundant at that point.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. I'd actually definitely much rather pay the 1 extra energy just for this ginormous beat stick. So last addition to the deck, I'm actually a huge fan of. I want to fit this into every single deck possible, because it's just so sneaky and so good. So the Hidden Power Supreme Kai. So you mentioned the low number double strike in the deck. How has this card been performing for you?
It's been performing great. I would definitely say every deck should fit in at least 2 of these, because of what you said of just how sneaky it is. Like that local that I played yesterday when I was playing the Jiren deck, he went down to, he had 2 life left, and I just swung with my leader and he was about to just drop a card from hand, drop from battle area, and just take life. And I was like, wait a second. And I comboed with the Kai, and he was like, what is this card?
Nuts. Yeah.
Why is this here?
Yeah, absolutely. That is so good. Sometimes your opponent's just at that 2 life, and you start your turn, you see the double strike in your hand, you turn your leader sideways, and you just dump everything into it. It's so good. And yeah, especially with the crit too. Like, I'm sure like a turn 2, turn 3, 1-drop Gohan with this is also nuts. That's super duper good. So then
I've done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I've done the turn 2 play Gohan, play Kai combo thing. I've also done, since Kaba reduces the cost of Kale, I would play Kale and then swing with Kale, and then that 1 mana that I saved for having Kaba in play is the Kai combo now.
For sure. Yeah, just insane pressure, especially with crit. Then you gave us a little bit of what you're sideboarding this format. So this will kind of segue us into talking about the format in general. So I guess let's talk about each side deck card and why you chose it, and then how that kind of plays into the format. So the 3 Mass Saiyan, talk about that a little bit.
So Black Mass Saiyan for me is kind of what like Cronoa was in my previous sideboard in the previous set, because Cronoa wouldn't let them play Shigesh at all, but Black Mass Saiyan says, go ahead, play Shigesh. You're going to drop 2 from your hand if you do.
Yep.
And if I ever needed the additional Self-Awakening, it's there. But most of the time it gets sided in for decks that play the battle cards that come out fast, like Planet Namek, or the I forget the terminology for it, but like the cards that combo and then they come into play in rest mode.
Yeah, that kind of thing, like Child's Wish strategies as well.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's really cool. I like how it can kind of be a good placeholder for Cronoa, because a lot of times, you almost feel like you need to side deck the Cronoa to not get blown out by a Shigesh deck, even though realistically no one plays the Shigesh decks. But the fact that Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan can also fill that role is pretty nice. And then we have the Kami Global Unifier. So what are you afraid of going wide on you with that this is going to solve?
Well, Universe 11 package, they can go pretty wide. It's just a common deck in my local group of friends.
Fair enough.
Shenron Veggies goes really wide, really fast.
Yep.
And that's basically what Kami's in there for. It's just the off chance that I play a Shenron deck that goes completely ballistic. That's why there's only 2, because the Broly deck and the way I built it, I have control of the board most of the game. It's just there just in case.
For sure. Then we have the Haru Haru Attacker Majin. That's just for generic yellow and green stuff. How bad does it feel that your deck is kind of susceptible to Haru Haru? I know it must be a little bit of a feels bad.
It is a bit of a feels bad, but I've had like 2-3 sets to get over it. Yeah. I just accept it. When I see it, whenever I play best of 3, I just assume they're going to side it in, and then I just try to play ahead.
Yeah, fair enough. And Father Son Kamehameha. So what kind of big stuff do you feel like you usually have to deal with?
Cell chain, primarily. If they go all out with the cell chain and they drop the big cell, then Father Son Kamehameha can blow it up like 99% of the time for 1 energy.
Fair enough. And then the Enraged Gohan Awakening, is that one of your answers for something like Victory Strike?
That's absolutely the answer for Victory Strike, because it can't be negated, but it can be KO'd.
Very cool. And I don't think green has like a giant plethora of this, but did you ever consider or mess around with like barrier blockers or maybe like the Deadly Defender?
I've considered the Deadly Defender, but I don't like the idea of committing slots in the deck and then having the body sit there when Broly, again, I might be forced to blow it up with the leader or with Kale.
Oh, fair enough. And the barrier doesn't even help because it's your own effect, yeah. And the Iron Hammer Justice Android 16, what do you usually bring this in against?
And this, honestly, 16 is my favorite sideboard card. I bring this in for... I usually bring it in with the Kami for decks that go wide, or decks that run a lot of barrier, like Xeno Maidens.
Fair enough.
That, I mean, he doesn't have barrier, but I don't see that as a reason not to run him. He's a blocker with revenge that can stand up. So if you have a bunch of cards in rest mode, they're all going to die, or you're going to lose your hand trying to keep them alive. Either way, Broly likes it.
Oh yeah, no, this card is absolutely insane. I really hope they print more cards with revenge for sure.
Me too. It's such an underutilized keyword, and green, other than KOing, which every color can do, it doesn't really have like its own niche. And I think revenge could be something that green could see more of and take advantage of.
That would actually be pretty sweet. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I would say one of the niches of green is probably more along the lines of hand control. Like you said, most colors can pretty much remove things from the board, but hand control is probably closer to green's niche. But revenge, because red has like two niches kind of with just like really big boss monsters and like kind of power reduction kind of stuff. So I can see green maybe moving into a two niche spot. So now that we've covered the sideboard, let's talk a little bit about the format and the matchups. So I would say probably the main, actually there's a lot, it's a pretty diverse format right now. So we talked about Storm, like Shocking Death Ball is kind of just the key there, even though I'm sure it's still, you know, an uphill battle, right?
Yeah, it still is. Storm is by far and away the #1 best deck in the format. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that.
Absolutely.
But now that Shocking Death Ball is a thing, they definitely can't play as recklessly, because even turn 1, turn 2, I can drop a couple of these. I have no issue just comboing to defend to fill up the sparking and then Shocking Death Ball my way to Awakening.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, because it's nice that, you know, you can combo pieces away, but then the negate becomes, you know, a 1-for-1 trade instead of just a -1. So absolutely.
Right.
And then how does the Shenron matchup fare for you?
I'll be honest, I haven't played a Shenron like in person locally, and I know that element of like being at the table makes a big difference. But I've played quite a few on Octagon and Untapped, and I haven't lost to a single Shenron.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, the hand control, it can definitely be tough against Shenron for sure. I mean, they need a lot of certain things in their hands, but they do have the recursion abilities, and there's a million different builds of Shenron, so I mean, it could also be depending on what you're playing against. Yeah. And then how has the Janemba Mill matchup been?
You know, Janemba Mill is a interesting beast, because like from set 3 to 4 to 5 with this deck, there's a lot more card draw, and then when you sit down against the Janemba, you don't want to draw a bunch of cards. So I definitely have to play differently. I actually rely more on the Broly package in the Janemba matchup instead of the veggies.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw it kind of at Nationals, like Cell Chain, for example, like hand control in general, really, really good against Janemba for sure. And then how's the Cell Chain matchup been for you?
Cell Chain, you know, I've had plenty of practice with it because it was everywhere since set 2.
Yep.
And I no longer fear it because I feel very comfortable playing it. It's a very linear chain. I see it coming, and then when you just got to be smart, time your plays correctly, keep your hand low enough that they don't want to Cell Chain you because they're waiting for that maximum value. Just keep your hand small and you'll be fine. Yeah,
I totally agree. And you know, we don't see too many Awaken Draw 2 leaders nowadays, but the fact that you have that built-in ability to your leader to kind of recover from a Cell Chain is really good. So what other kind of prominent matchups? I think we've listed a lot of the main pillars of the format, but what other matchups have you come across that you want to kind of mention?
Yeah, sure. Baby Vegeta, or Vegeta Baby, whatever that league is called. That Machine Mutant Revenge Death Ball shenanigans. I've seen that a lot, and they suffer from the hand destruction too.
Yep.
I feel. If they use that front side ability and awaken themselves too early and they don't have big enough bodies on board, then that awakening ability is essentially blank because they don't want to KO their own card just to pop like a Kaba or reduce a KO, a Caulifla by 10.
Right.
Yeah, hand destruction wins the day against that. I've played a lot of Soul Striker lately. Just, you know, typical Soul Striker stuff, mostly blue-green, just lots of Sensu Beans, lots of Dimension Magic, lots of defense. It's annoying, but they grind the game, and so does Broly, and it comes to a point where you can pack so much defense, but you're not going to be able to deal the killing blow, but I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I've played Soul Striker a lot, and like one of the things is you never have a ginormous hand to begin with. Like it's usually maybe like a 10 to 8 card hand trying to defend a Vegito, which against a lot of decks is pretty good, but when Broly is just making you rip cards out of the hand, it can get really taxing for sure. Yeah, and I like how you mentioned Baby Vegeta. I really like how certain leaders like Baby Vegeta has Revenge Death Ball, Broly has Deathless Warrior. I really like how a lot of these niche decks have like really, really good power cards. It just gives people a reason to play those decks, and if you can work around those cards, it's really, really good.
Definitely, I really like the character specific cards as well. It just gives more flavor and more individuality to leaders that you might not consider. And Deathless is a really, really strong card. And I want to go on a sidebar actually about Deathless. The number one comment I see recurring in the Facebook group, both the Broly group and the main one, is Broly's trash. He's garbage because he can't swing with Deadly Defenders and Rest. Right? And that's completely true, because they have barrier and Broly can't attack battle cards. Like, I don't understand that argument, because number one, we have battle cards. It's not like I only have the leader.
Right.
And it's only like a 15 to 20k on average, and Caulifla is a 2-drop with that number.
Right.
So that's easily dealable. And number two, if they're wasting resources like from their hand to defend the Deadly Defender, or they're using like all their battle cards are just dying if the Deadly Defender's alive, then you can play Deathless and just punish them for having only a Deadly Defender in play. They have to drop the 2 because they can't KO a card with barrier.
Right, and you told me last time in the video that if your opponent ever really has to KO a card with Deathless, you're playing the deck wrong. Like your opponent should always be dropping 2 cards for sure. Yeah, so definitely I appreciate that little in-depth tidbit on Deathless because it's really important for the players that want to pick up this deck. And final question, how stoked are you for the new like Broly theme set coming out?
You know, I'm just stoked for that movie.
Yeah, same.
I'm not stoked for the way Bandai is pushing all these promos. That's something I'm a little iffy about. I don't like that. But I mean, the fire isn't really burning bright yet, because it depends on what they name the new leader. If it's not Broly, if it's like Broly DBS or Broly Super, then you can't use things like Deathless, and that's going to be a huge bummer. You're practically going to have to build the deck with an entirely different engine.
That is very true. I actually have thought about how they might make this coming Broly a whole different character in terms of the card game. That could definitely be a thing. It would be very interesting. I mean, it's a different look on Broly. He's got a different backstory, so that could be a thing for sure. And I guess we'll see what happens when we have the spoilers. Maybe when we have the spoilers, I'll have to have you on a podcast so we can talk about them.
Oh, that'd be great.
That'd be super awesome. Yeah. Well, Josh, I want to thank you so much for giving us the updated deck profile. Yeah, thanks so much. Any final shout outs you want to give out there?
Just shout out to the local Rhode Island crew that I regularly. It's hard for me to go to locals because I'm disabled and I can't drive, but I have like a good group of like 5 or 6 people that I play this regularly and test it with. So shout out to Chris, Eric, Kat, Mike, Faragi, Ryan, Bill. You guys are awesome.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much for this deck profile. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will post our Discord server link down in the description below. We talk about everything Dragon Ball Super related there. Check that out. If you guys want to help me out, it really means the world to me. My Patreon link was also going to be in the description below as well. For just $1 measly, you can help me keep bringing you guys this awesome DBS content. Thank you one more time, Josh, and we'll see you next time.